Hi guys, how are you? This is Lois. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well and safe wherever you are, and I hope that you're enjoying your summer. Today I'm here to address a very popular subject: cheap schools in Canada. So in this video I'm going to be addressing where to find cheap schools in Canada and examples of those cheap schools, the advantages and the disadvantages of cheap schools in Canada. So you want to stay throughout this video. Now I'm an immigration consultant and I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I do not have a physical office anywhere in the world, including Canada. Okay, when the pandemic came, it was a perfect time for us to work online, and I have not gone back to an office since. So I work online, I meet people on Zoom or Teams, and you can always book a session with me. You can retain my services for whatever, but please always book a consultation on our website www.mileleimmigrationservices.ca. Okay, now the information on my channel is for education purposes only. This should not be taken as legal advice. Okay, if you need legal advice, what I said earlier, go and book a consultation and I'll be happy to sit with you and discuss your immigration issues with you, your eligibility, the available options, give you a second opinion, give you peace of mind, advise you on how to apply, and a few tricks in the industry. Okay guys, now let's get back to the point of this video. Now we're going to address two types of cheap schools in Canada because I believe this video will be addressing people who want to come here and take post-secondary education. That is, people who've already attained a high school credential. Okay, so there are two types of schools that are going to be cheap. One is cheap private schools, some private schools that are dirt cheap. Okay, and then we shall talk about public schools which are relatively cheap. Okay, some of them actually are like dirt cheap when compared to other schools here in Canada. We shall get there. So let's first talk about the dirt cheap schools, which are private schools. Some of them, not all of them, don't get me wrong. There are actually some private schools that will be very expensive. So this is for the person who is looking at what is cheap. You know, maybe we should address that. What is cheap? Because cheap is relative to, depends on who is talking about cheap. There are some people to whom $30,000 a year is cheap, and there are some people who want cheap like 10,000 Canadian dollars. That is the cheap I'm talking about, guys. Okay, 10,000 Canadian dollars a year. Maybe at times could be lower than that, slightly lower. I can't promise you, but there could be some of them that are maybe about 8,000 Canadian dollars a year. But then again, don't be deceived by some of these figures, because I saw a school that was saying, oh, school fees is only 4,500 Canadian dollars. And I'm like, how is that? That is per semester, not per year. So you still have to calculate your school fees per year, because a year still has at least 2 semesters. So in that case, they were saying 4,500. So times 2, that is 9,000. And if you still consider 9,000, that is still not the final tuition. There was medicals, there was some other, miscellaneous fees. So at the end of the day, it was still coming to 12,000 Canadian dollars. So be real. Okay, be real. I tell people I don't know how to sugarcoat things. You should always be real with yourself. Anybody else can tell you lies. You gotta be real with yourself. So we're talking of 10,000, 12,000 Canadian dollars. Okay, but as I say, these dirt cheap schools, they could be actually less than that. You could find some schools which are going for like 6,000, 7,000 Canadian dollars a year. Okay, now let's talk about these dirt cheap private schools. These are colleges that are going to bend over backwards to give you an admission. How do you spot them? They are private. Okay, so they are interested in your money. Okay, so they basically Some of them could be designated learning institutions, others are not even designated learning institution. You know, for you to come to Canada on a study permit, you want to make sure that you're coming to a designated learning institution. Some of these cheap ones, they are not designated learning institutions, and some that are already designated learning institutions, the programs they offer don't have what we call postgraduate work permit. Okay, actually most of them, not some, most of them, their courses will not lead you to a postgraduate work permit. Final. Okay, so as I said, they are after your money and you are after a Canadian credential. You are both willing buyers. Okay, guys? So now, these schools admit indiscriminately. They don't care whether it's January, June, July. You hear a school that is admitting you for March? Question mark. You know, we have the main school calendars like January, May, and September. These schools don't care. They're gonna be admitting you here in August, in July, and February. Okay, that's a red flag. The other thing, these schools don't care about GPA. They just want you. They want you and your money. So they don't care if you got an E for effort, they will take you. So at least at times, I still think that for those people who are locked out by a lot of schools because of their GPA, maybe this is a good place to go because at least they'll give you that admission, okay? Now, majority of their courses are 1 year. Majority, I didn't say all their courses, majority of their courses will be like 1 year. So you gotta be careful about what you will do next after that course, okay? So my goal here is not to name and shame. No, that's not my goal and not my place. And there's nothing to be ashamed of for being a private school, but you will know them once you see them. I just want you to know that, please understand what it is you're getting into when you get an admission with them. Don't get an admission blindly, just saying, oh, you know what, there's this cheap school and I'm coming to Canada on a study permit. You'll still apply for a study permit, but then if your goal is to become a permanent resident, you should be careful about these kind of schools. Okay, my friend? Yes. Now, there's one trick I'll give you about this kind of a school. Since they are cheap, if you are struggling financially and you're working on a super tight budget, you can always get this kind of a school for the visa approval. Because you don't have to show a lot of finances. And then later on in Canada, you can figure out how to change to a proper school. This is not legal advice. Don't go saying Lois told you to do this. This is a dirty trick in the industry, okay? So and please know it doesn't always work, okay, because of many reasons. So you may want to sit down and seek legal advice to get yourself a very good strategy on how to use this kind of a cheap school towards your goal, towards your immigration goals. Okay, now let's get to the other kind of schools, the public schools. Yes, you want to come to a public school if at all possible in Canada. Okay, public school, they are designated learning institutions, that is DLIs, and their courses lead to postgraduate work permits. Now, we have some really cheap schools in Canada that fall within that class, and actually some of them even have scholarships and grants. Okay, and they offer quality education. So simply because they are cheap, it doesn't mean that their education is any less quality than what you would get in other expensive schools. So actually some of them, they have very good education. So they are also top schools in their own regions. Okay, now the other thing is you'll find that they will most likely waive the English requirement depending on your country of origin. So always know your country of origin, and if your mode of instruction was English, majority of the schools in Canada will waive your English requirement. So before you go doing IELTS academic, always know whether it's a requirement. All right, my friend. Now, what are the advantages of going to this very cheap school? Number one, come on, of course, they are affordable. You don't have to break your back and bank at the same time to come to this school. So they're cheap, they're affordable. Of course, they have good education, okay? And And also you find that majority of these schools, they are going to be in places that have cheap cost of living. Okay, which is the flip side. Which are the disadvantages? And I know you can infer some disadvantages from that already. Okay, now some of these cheap schools, guess what? Everybody wants to come to that cheap school, so competition is crazy. Okay, so then admission rate is very low. Secondly, because of that competition, you realize that they are very strict on when they open their admission. Like they may even just open an admission like on a specific date. Everybody is waiting by the computer to get admitted, and they fill up real fast. The other day I watched another school fill up in 2 hours. Okay, all right. Yeah, so you gotta be careful. If you're just waiting your entire year to get a slot, to get a chance to apply to their school, then you gotta be watching their back like a hawk, so that you don't miss the opportunity when they open up their admission. And make sure that you have everything right, so that immediately you submit your application, you can complete that process before everybody else applies. Okay, so because of that, I don't know if I've already mentioned that they have very low admission rate because of the competition. So they usually like prioritize people who then have very high GPAs, or people who have, you know, circumstances that need to be considered. Okay, so most likely they are going to require you to write a letter of intent. And when you're writing a letter of intent, whether it's for scholarship or just even for admission, what are these schools looking for? They either want the cream de la cream because of this, you know, high competition, or the other people they will consider are people who have gone through hardship. Yes, so what is hardship? You know, they want you to to articulate the hardships that you've gone through life that prevented you maybe from getting that high GPA, or that have led you to the circumstances that you are in right now. So all they want is a sob story, like serious sob story. You know, how you are afflicted, how you are persecuted, how all those calamities happened to you, and you still emerged to be this awesome person who has achieved so much regardless of the circumstances. So make sure to come up with a very strong application when you're applying to some of these schools. Okay, now the other disadvantage with these schools is that, remember I say that they have, you know, lower cost of living depending on where they are located. That also tells you that most of them are going to be in remote places, or, you know, some of them could also be in very cold places, undesirable places. So you find that you could be facing issues of employability in majority of these schools, depending on their location. That's why they are selling, you know, there's always going to be a catch. Whenever it's very cheap, how will you pay for it? Okay, either there's low employability, or there's very low wages in the location where this kind of a school is located. Okay, so now enough of that. I'm not here to scare you guys. If you find cheap schools, come on, apply for them. I would. But again, you also gotta be real with yourself. Like, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? Because you could also get something that is too cheap, but then again, it limits you on employability to such a point whereby you may want to move that province, or even that location, or that community, to go to a popular place whereby you'll find employability. So majority of these schools are not gonna be in priority provinces, or in the most desirable provinces. So you're talking of places like Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba. You're talking of northern Alberta. Any place that is near north. Did you hear north? Any place that is near north, where it's very cold, that's where you'll find some of these very cheap courses. Northern British Columbia, or in these tiny provinces like Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, remote parts of Nova Scotia, remote New Brunswick, or even just in Newfoundland. Okay, my friends? So examples of these colleges, I don't have all of them, but examples. I know in Saskatchewan, University of Saskatchewan actually has some very cheap programs, okay? And this is not paid. Come on, I'm not being paid by anybody to talk about their school. It's just from my research. I know that there are some masters which are very cheap in University of Saskatchewan. I've actually seen courses that are about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 Canadian dollars. Ooh, that is dirt cheap. And then I've seen some other courses that are also cheap in Manitoba, like, you know, 2-year programs that cost 20,000. I think that is cheap. You can find some at, is it University of Manitoba or University of Winnipeg, Brandon University. So, in Alberta, I think like the cheapest colleges you're talking about will be like Keano College, that up in Fort McMurray. But then again, you want to look at some community colleges. So every province will have community colleges. Those will have very cheap and affordable programs. You're talking of 20 to 30,000 Canadian dollars. Sorry, not 20. Yeah, you're talking of anything from 12,000 to 16,000 Canadian dollars. Okay. Now there's this in BC. You want to look at Northern Lights College. Yes, it's way northern BC. In Newfoundland, you want to look at the college there, the community college there, and also Memorial University. I said already University of Saskatchewan, Brandon University in Manitoba. In PEI, there's the University of PEI, and there's also that, is it Holland College that is up there? So please look at those. And the Community College of Nova Scotia and the Community College of New Brunswick. Those are really, 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 really good colleges. They are community colleges. They have wonderful programs. So I'm not exhausted. So please don't say that this is an exhaustive list. No, there's a lot of other schools here which are affordable. I just wanted to give you examples. So guys, right now it's about time to start applying for schools in Canada for May and September. So make sure that you're ready with all the requirements. Make sure you nail the course, you nail the admission, and of course then you'll be able to nail the visa. So thank you guys for those ones who've subscribed to this channel. Thank you for subscribing, like and share this video. If you need my legal advice, please head on to our website and book a consultation. And I hope to see you in my next video, because I'm making a lot of videos at this time when I have time. And please, 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 I just want to note this before you leave. If you've previously been denied a study permit or even a visitor visa, if you have been denied any of those, they are temporary visas to Canada, before you apply for a subsequent visa, make sure that you have reviewed the reasons why the first one was denied. We are happy to help you with that. We can review the reasons and give you a strategy on reapplication. So kindly head on to our website and book that consultation. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye now.